Up here. What's your name?
Bella.
Bella?
Yes.
Good to meet you, Bella.
So, like this concept of like free will and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it originated in like the garden with Adam and Eve. So like if God is like all knowing and like I've had people ask me this and I literally have like no idea how to answer it. But like if God is all knowing and stuff, like why did He let Adam and Eve like go through the fall if He knew they were gonna go through it?
Yeah. So free will didn't originate in the garden. So God has free will. He makes free choices. The angels had free will, and that's what Satan deceived and took a third of the angels with him. But God also created humans with free will. And so if we ask the question, well, why did God let them? Well, what would be the other alternative? How do you not let someone, like, for example, it's like you have children, and you go, okay, I know if I have a child, they can possibly do something bad. So I'm going to stop them from ever being able to do anything bad by locking them in their bedroom and chaining them to a heavy kitchen appliance. Well, now that's evil in and of itself. Right? So we have this understanding of it's impossible for God to give us free will and then keep us from using it wrongly, because that then would be taking our free will away. And so what, from a Christian perspective, we understand is that free will is more valuable. For us to freely enter into a loving relationship with God, that's what He wants. Right? My laptop doesn't have free will. If I type into my laptop, Ryan, I love you so much, and then hit play, and my laptop goes, Ryan, I love you so much, that means nothing, because I just made it do it. But if my wife sitting back here says, Ryan, I love you so much, that feels so good. Because she doesn't have to. She's freely choosing to love me. And so if God creates humans and then makes them like computers where they have no free will to choose, then we cannot enter into that loving relationship that God really truly desires for us. And so He does give us free will, knowing we can use it wrongly, but also understanding that it is a greater benefit for us to have free will and a greater benefit to knowingly and with our free will come into that relationship that we have for Him. And what I normally kind of say if I'm talking to parents is, you probably had the same thought of, well, if you know that your kids could rebel against you, why did you have children? Well, because the ability to give life and to be in a relationship with that child is a greater good than saying, well, this child could reject me in the future, so I'm just never going to have any kids. So God absolutely knows what can happen, but then we can't forget that God does provide Jesus Christ as salvation, as saying, I know you're going to mess up, so I'm already going to put a plan in motion to redeem you from that. And so we truly see the love of God come through.
So do you think like with the Adam and Eve situation, like it was more, He knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then like He let it happen because He wants us to have free will. And it's like recorded in the Bible as us like to look back on it, to like show how much He loves us and how much He wants us to like choose or do.
Yeah, and I think that because of evil, and I didn't go over this in my talk because we just didn't have time, is that I think evil is a very good teacher of lessons. And I think one reason why there's evil, I normally use this illustration. I have this pen. How many of you would like to see me take this pen and just jab it in my eyeball? No? No? Now, am I ever going to take this pen and just stick it in my eyeball? Not maybe. No, never. I wouldn't do it for $100. I wouldn't even do it for $1 million. You give me 50 years in life and 100 years of life, I'm never going to take this pen and just stick it in my eye. Why not? Because it's crazy. It's stupid. Right? Now, do you give sharp objects to little babies? No, why not? They will stick it in their eye because they don't know any better. And so I think that one thing that sin does in this life is it teaches us how stupid sin is. We learn about the consequences and the stupidity of sin to where you can give me a pen and say, are you ever going to put that in your eye? No. And therefore, when we get to heaven and we truly know and understand the goodness and beauty of God and living in His perfection, even if we had the chance to sin in heaven, which I don't think we do, we're going to go, yeah, I'm never choosing that. I'm never going back to that world when I know now what I have. And I think that's one way that Lucifer was able to deceive so many angels, is they didn't know the effects of sin. And so I think that sin is a huge teacher of a valuable lesson. Also, it's, as some argue, is like the character building defense of evil. Is how could we possibly understand the forgiveness of Jesus Christ of our sins? We don't know what it means to forgive because no one can ever do anything bad to us. How can we truly understand the sacrifice that God made by sacrificing his one and only Son if we've never had to sacrifice? How can we truly understand the peace of God if we've never lived in war and chaos? How can we truly understand the joy of God if we've never experienced sadness? And so I think that one thing that God knows is that sin builds our character to where we truly understand the nature and character of Christ, what he has done for us, to truly appreciate him for all eternity. So I think that there are valuable lessons that we do learn that God knows outweighs the negatives of sin. Now, one quick thing, and sorry, this is so many things I wanted to talk about in my talk this morning in 30 minutes. That's normally like 45 minutes to an hour talk. If anyone were in here for Why God Allows Evil, and I crammed it in like 30 minutes. But one thing we can't also forget is God's timeline. Right? So if you live 80 years and you suffer miserably for 40, and then you die and nothing happens, there is no afterlife. Well, you suffered 40 years out of 80 years, you suffered 50% of your life. That sucks. Now, with an afterlife, if you suffer 40 out of your 80 years, and then you go live in eternal happiness and glory with God, what is 40 years of suffering divided by infinity? It's effectively 0%. Now, that doesn't mean to minimize the suffering we go through in this life that is terribly hurtful and difficult. But when we understand God's perspective of all of eternity, I think it is good reason God said, yeah, I'm going to allow this small suffering in your life because of the greater good and the glory that awaits you. So there's a long answer to your question, but thank you. That was really good.